I'm good to go.
Thank you.
Over to you, Chair.
So I was just waiting for the link to work on my YouTube. Are we live then? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Communities and Local Services Scrutiny Committee on Thursday, the 22nd of October. As you may have noticed, it's getting dark outside. The floodlights are on, and we are test driving our new night match format. With the number of sessions in the evenings, we hope to make the scrutiny process more accessible to the public, and of course, make it easier for councillors to attend. That being said, kids' bedtime is at 6:30, so we're going to have to be quick. This committee was also intended to be held at the head of steam this evening, but unfortunately, due to recent events, I've had to opt for a realistic looking background instead. So if we want to start with the introductions, so I'll call a roll call, starting Councillor Allen.
Here.
Councillor Barch. Councillor Cousins.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Cully.
Here.
Councillor Donoghue.
Here.
Councillor Durham.
Here.
Councillor Heseltine.
Yes.
Councillor McCollum.
Here.
Councillor Renton here. Councillor Tate. Who said that? Someone hasn't got their microphone on mute. Councillor Wallace.
Here.
Okay, so we have no apologies except for Councillor Mrs. Cully, who has made it. So in terms of portfolio holders, Councillor Dalston or Councillor Keir. That was very quiet, Councillor Keir, but yeah, I heard you. And officers, I've got Ian Thompson.
Yes, here, thank you.
David Stanley.
Here.
And Brian Graham.
Yeah, here.
Okay, so we'll move on to declarations of interest, and I will start by saying that I am a trustee of the Friends of the Stockton and Darlington Railway. Are there any other declarations of interest? I can't see any hands raised. Okay, move on. And next, to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of August 2020. So I have a few points, but I'll open to the floor first to see if anyone has any. Councillor Mrs. Cully.
Thank you, Chair. On page 3, it says that it was resolved, part A, that consideration should be given to the addition of impact on quality of life as a factor when considering tree removal. My recollection of the meeting was that we spoke about tree maintenance. Not everybody wants trees to be removed, and I thought that our recommendation was to include the word maintenance, because that's the thing that causes misery in Mowden when trees are dropping rubbish all over people's houses and paths and their council trees, and nothing is done to help them. So can we please include the words maintenance in that bit? Do you want me to give you both of me things, or do you want them one at a time?
Yeah, go ahead.
And the other thing, on page 4, at the bottom, it says members made reference to the term right-wing extremism and suggested the term political extremism be used in its place. And then the very next sentence, or the last sentence, they've used the words right-wing extremism again. So can we do what we said that we wanted to do and use political extremism, because it's not just right-wing? Thank you.
I think both of those are fair points on the minutes, unless anyone has any objections. Councillor McCollum.
Sorry, Chair, I don't know if somebody had their hand up to comment on those suggestions. I had some other points to raise.
I didn't see any appear after I said that, so no. Go ahead, Councillor McCollum.
Thank you, Chair. With reference to the report on Darlington Market, Para 2 refers to the work on the roof being underway. I can't recall if that was said in the meeting, but in fact, this has not yet started. In fact, the funding release has only been agreed as of Tuesday gone, I think, the 20. Yeah, the most recent cabinet. Para 7 of the minutes of that report. Sorry, Para 12. So it was asked that MAM come back with a strategy for the outdoor market. I just wondered if there'd been any progress, Chair.
We haven't had anything back from MAM yet on the outdoor strategy. One of my points was to say that it was a case of adding as soon as possible to that recommendation because they haven't got it ready yet, whereas that line makes it sound like it's ready to be shared. And in terms of the roof maintenance, yeah, if that can be amended, Hannah, please. Okay, I think I actually missed Councillor Wallace on coming back on Councillor Cully's point, if I'm right.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, no, I just on the point regarding little a on page 3 under resolved. The debate, certainly the thrust of the debate was around removal and considering quality of life of residents as a factor when considering whether or not to remove a tree. I know, but certainly Councillor Cull is right. There was also a point about maintenance. But I think we need to include both of those, and it's not an either or. So as long as we're not taking out removal and including maintenance, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, completely agree. Okay, next I've got Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding page 3, resolved B, the figures that MAM said that they would provide regarding their estimates of footfall, etc., etc. I haven't had anything, and I just wondered if perhaps yourself or maybe the officers had received something from MAM regarding those figures.
Yeah, we had received a document that had forecast figures, and that was another of the points that I was going to discuss afterwards. We're going to make that document, or what can be made public, we're going to put that with the minutes on the website with this committee session, so that the public, and you should have already been emailed it, Councillor Allen, but I'll make sure that's sent to you again just in case you missed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, have we got anyone else? Nope. Okay, so my point, members, to give consideration to further performance indicators. Now, if anyone has any other performance indicators they'd like to add, if they could indicate now, and then we'll discuss it in supplementary items at the end. Nope, everyone wants an early night. No problem. And the final one is the walk in the woods that's to be arranged for members. And Hannah, if you could give us an update on that, please.
So I did obtain some dates from the arborist. However, given the increase in the number of cases that we've seen and the introduction of the stricter measures, it was felt that it was best to put it on hold for now and wait until things are calmed down and were a bit safer. However, if members did want to proceed with it now, we could look into how we could do that safely.
I mean, I don't have a problem with walking in a field in groups of 6 if we're allowed to. So maybe we'll just discuss that afterwards, and then I'll put an email out to see who's interested. Thank you. Councillor Wallace, I've got your hand up again.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry. I've just noticed, I hadn't noticed before, the agenda item is to approve the minutes. So are we dealing with matters arising from the minutes as well, or are we purely dealing with corrections?
Corrections.
Okay.
Are there matters arising?
Lovely. There is one simply, if I may, Chair,
Yeah.
on maybe Mr. Thompson can help on page 3 on the tree and woodland strategy. Am I right in thinking the consultation has come to an end now, and can we be advised when the matter is going to Cabinet?
Yeah, Chair, I can. The consultation did conclude on Sunday. Off the top, I haven't got it in front of me, but I think there's something like 145 responses to the consultation exercise, and the intention, all things being well, a report will be presented to Cabinet in December.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so if there's no more comment, I'd like to propose those minutes. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Yep, and a quick show of hands. Okay, that seems to be a majority. Okay, thank you. Moving on now to an update from David Stanley on Darlington Banktop Station, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just try and share the presentation. Can members see the presentation? I'd like to sort of take members, some members will be aware of the Darlington Station project because it's been in concept for a number of years now, but I'd like to take members through some of the background to why it's needed and then update members where we're at and where we're going. So members can hopefully see that, and since the concept of the project, Tees Valley Combined Authority produced a strategic transport plan, and rail features heavily in that transport plan. And the aspiration is to deliver a high quality integrated rail network across the Tees Valley that facilitates passenger and freight growth. And we really want to build a network and services that provide alternative to the private car. For those of you who don't know, there's quite an extensive rail network across the Tees Valley. And that diagram there shows the layout. Darlington's lucky enough to be the only East Coast mainline station in the Tees Valley, and that provides real opportunities for the Tees Valley and Darlington. To the west of the East Coast mainline that runs north-south through Darlington is the Bishop line that goes off to Bishop Auckland. To the east is the Tees Valley line, which goes right the way across to Saltburn. And there's probably 30 or so stations on the Tees Valley line. So there's quite a significant rail network there that's served by 2 trains an hour and 1 train an hour on the Bishop line. So that isn't massive frequency in terms of train services. So part of the project is to try and increase rail frequency in the Tees Valley and the Bishop Auckland line to a walk-up service, which means basically you don't have to wait for a significant amount of time. You just literally turn up and there will be a train waiting for you to jump onto or make connections to. Part of the Tees Valley strategy requires some capacity constraints to be unlocked. The key ones and the foundation for this plan are at Middlesbrough and Darlington. And I'll be obviously talking about the Darlington Station plans today, but there's similar plans and projects going on at Middlesbrough and some development work being done at Hartlepool, where they've got a single platform station and potentially need further platforms to be reinstated. So the project objectives that go back a number of years, we want to transform Darlington train station to a modern transport hub. It's not had significant investment for a number of years now, and we really want to transform that into a new station fit for the 20th century. We want more frequent and faster local national services, but we also want to future-proof the station for the needs of the railway in the future and make sure those local services can continue to be used. We also want to support and enhance the wider regeneration opportunities that an East Coast mainline station gives to Darlington and the Tees Valley. The next slide shows how it all fits together, and I know you've got a presentation later on about the Rail Heritage Quarter. But the station's a key component of our regeneration plans. The blue area there is the station project. We've got Central Park, which is growing and developing fast. We've just recently put the bridge across there. We've got the theatre that's recently been refurbished and the children's theatre on Parkgate. We've got the town centre strategy that's coming forward, and all those linked together form our sort of strategy going forward to regenerate and bring forward Darlington. Tees Valley, Darlington is the only East Coast Mainline station, as I've said before, and it's a potential future Northern Powerhouse Rail and HS2 station. So that will give much more wider access and faster access in the future to the rest of the country, making Darlington a very accessible place. If and when HS2 arrives in Darlington, that will cut the journey time to Birmingham by 52 minutes, making it 1 hour 29. It will cut the journey time to London to 1 hour 52, saving 28 minutes. So we're preparing to accept that greater accessibility. This is a bit of a technical slide just to explain what the current configuration is at Darlington Station and why the current arrangements causes problems between local services and national services. The blue line is the East Coast Main Line. Darlington Station is on the west side of the East Coast Main Line, which means anything coming from the Tees Valley has to cross the East Coast Main Line to get into the station at South Junction, which is there. So basically Tees Valley lines have to cross and get across into Darlington Station, either dock in the bay platforms 2 or 3 or platform 4. What that means is it takes a lot of time out of the East Coast Main Line for a slow-moving passenger train to get across the South Junction and into the station. So that takes up a lot of capacity for national train services going north-south, up and down the East Coast Main Line. Similarly, at North Junction, you've got to cross the Scotland-bound line to get into the station. So that, once again, causes capacity issues on the East Coast Main Line, limiting the amount of services that can go on the East Coast Main Line. So what we've done in terms of a design and a solution to that is developed up a new arrangement. So what will basically be the new configuration at Darlington Station, the Tees Valley line will be brought round parallel to the East Coast Main Line and come into some new platforms on the new station. There will still be the facility to cross South Junction if there's capacity and come into Darlington Station and go off along the Bishop line if there is capacity to get across that South Junction. And there will also be provision for a new London-bound platform to be built on the east side. So basically, if you go into the Tees Valley or London in the future, you will use the new station. And if you go coming to or from the Bishop line or go into Scotland, you will use the existing station. That reduces and removes the need to cross the East Coast Main Line and creates the capacity to expand services on the Tees Valley line, the Bishop line and the East Coast Main Line. So in terms of project delivery, we've split the project into a number of stages or elements. We've got the operational railway, which is track improvements and new east side platforms, station enhancements, which is the new station building, an accessible footbridge through that links the new station with the old station, internal changes to the station, and the station gateway project, which is a new car park, a multimodal interchange, and enhancements to the portico, an improved interchange on the west side. So both approaches from both sides of the station are improved with transport interchange, and the target date for the completion of that is the end of 2024. I'd like to take you through the various elements of the project quickly so you understand what's going on. We've broken it down, as we say, into various stages. We've got the Victoria Road interchange. We've got the Victoria Road improvements that are ongoing at the moment. They're improved the pedestrian and walk-in route to the town centre, which is a key link into the town centre strategy. So the Victoria Road interchange will see better pedestrian and cycling and bus interchange provided at that location. We've got Darlington Station itself, and we've got the new East Side interchange and station. So in terms of Station East, as we call it, the new station, you'll have provision for an East Coast Main Line South platform, and we'll have the Tees Valley platforms. We'll have a new station building with modern facilities and retail. We'll have a new bridge from the new station to the existing station going through the shed and into the area where currently Pumpkin and WH Smiths are based, and so landing there. We'll have a new multi-storey car park that provides capacity to sort of help with rationalisation of parking, because we don't want parking in the portico area or up and down the ramp. There's a new transport interchange for pick up and drop off and bus replacement services. And we're also looking at improved walking and cycling links throughout the station. In terms of the station itself, we've got the portico improvements. We want to make sure the station's got access for all enhancements. So currently the ramps, steps, etc., aren't particularly disabled friendly, so we want to introduce lifts and facilities that make it accessible for all. We're working on the customer experience to enhance that, and we're looking at improvements to the subway from the improved portico area. And as I've said there, we're looking at rationalisation of the parking and access to make it a friendly environment in the portico. Most people who've probably used the portico entrance on Victoria Road have probably had to dodge cars dropping off and other vehicles going in and out of that area, which is very tight, and reversing cars from the parking spaces, etc. And as I've said, there'll be a bridge, an accessible bridge throughout the station, making the interchange between platforms efficient and effective. Victoria Road interchange, we're looking at new pick-up and drop-off facilities to replace the ones in the portico. We're looking at new bus stop facilities, walking and cycling, and an improved public realm. Basically, obviously, the first impression of Darlington for some people is as you walk out on Victoria Road, and we want to improve that feel and look and public realm and make it a pleasant walk down to the town centre. And it will also provide an improved link to the cattle market site, which has come into the council's ownership recently. In terms of delivery, there's quite a significant project management and governance structure around this with all partners, TVCA, DFT, Network Rail, London, LNER, Northern, and basically the project's been ran in two phases. Darlington Council will design and build the station gateway on the east side, which includes the multi-storey car park, the station shell, and the interchange, and that'll be through the SCAPE framework. And 25 million's been allocated from TVCA to be committed by March 23. And there's some timescales, the current milestones there of us starting the CPO process in January 21, getting the planning permissions in spring 21, construction winter 22, and operational March 24. In terms of the major rail and station enhancements, that's going to be led by Network Rail. And Network Rail have engaged BAM Nuttall for a design build process, and the DFT have allocated up to 8.7 million for the design stage. And their targets are getting a decision to deliver September next year, complete the design June 22, and construction start January 23. With construction complete in May 24 and the new track and station operational December 24, ahead of the celebrations for 2025. That's an early indicative concept. It will change, but that shows the new station on the east side with the multi-storey car park, entrance to the station, new platforms, bridge across, and the public realm, which will have a transport interchange. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, David. So we will open up to questions. Do we have any questions? Hands up, please. Councillor Allen, if you'd like to start us off.
From what I've just heard, the very last bit that's going to be done by Network Rail re new track and station operational by December 2024. What do we do when, like most other big transport programs, everything goes behind schedule? What are we going to be like as a town celebrating its bicentenary if we've got a complete and utter mess at our railway station? In other words, what guarantees do we have as a town that Network Rail can and will deliver on time? Thank you.
Councillor. Dave?
So Network Rail and DFT have introduced a new process. It's called the Rail Network Enhancements Pipeline, which is a new process, which is a 5-stage project management process, whereby the project must go through 5 gateways, and at each gateway it's got to have a certain level of confidence and development, which is a new process to address issues in the past. So we're currently got approval to design, which is the 8.7 million of funding. The next stage is approval to construct, and as part of that, all the sort of development work will have been done, all the program will have been checked, the contractors will have been engaged, and it will be checked against the delivery program. So there's a lot more assurance and checks and milestones in the process now to make sure it does happen on time, and we meet fortnightly, monthly, at certain levels, and it's managed that way.
If I may, a supplementary on that, how much input and how much control do our council have over this project and its timings?
So in terms of the governance structure, the board, the project team, which I form part of it, reports to, is chaired by the Tees Valley Mayor, and the leader of the council sits on that, along with the managing director and the managing director of Network Rail's route. So there's a senior management governance structure in this project that meets 3 monthly to review progress and programme. So we have a stake on that board to influence the management of the project.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Wallace, were you wanting to come in on that?
Simply to say, Chair, congratulations to Mr. Stanley and his team. I remember just a few years ago, this was a twinkle in a few people's eyes, and it seemed highly unlikely, if not impossible, that we were going to get anywhere close to either the vision of this scheme or the timescales that Dave is outlined in his presentation. And I know the hundreds of hours that have been put in by Dave and his team, by members in the combined authorities, and also leadership whether clearly we have the current leadership, Tees Valley leadership, and Councillor Dixon as well, who spent an awful lot of time in Manchester and in London and in other places arguing for this scheme to be delivered. And I mean, Councillor Allen is right. The dates are extremely ambitious, but Dave's given us some reassurances there in terms of likelihood of hitting them. It's a simple question. In terms of the local authorities' exposure in this, Dave, whether revenue or capital, is this all money coming from elsewhere, or do we have to put some money into the pot as well?
At the moment, the outline business case has asked DFT to fund circa an order of magnitude cost of 80 million and TVCA to fund 25 million, with officer time contributing to the project from a Darlington perspective.
And forgive me, Chair, just thinking about that 80 million from government. So there were lots of tranches of government funding at different dates, and it was all very confusing, frankly. Which tranche of money are we looking to draw from now as far as government spend is concerned?
So there used to be, and there still is, what's called control periods, where there are 5-year blocks of expenditure in rail. That's changed slightly, and it sort of all goes through the rail, not all, but new schemes go through the rail network enhancements pipeline now, to make sure each scheme is developed on an individual basis rather than putting in a programme. So it comes from a government programme that's set aside for pipeline schemes. So each one will only get to the next stage if it stacks up in terms of value for money, cost and detail. So basically what we've done so far, we've submitted a strategic outline business case, which got us to a certain stage. We've delivered an outline business case, which is more detailed. It's allowed the government to release the 8.7 million of design fees. And the next stage is a full business case, and which is next year, which allows them or gives them the confidence to release the funding for the construction phases.
Happy with that, Councillor? Have we still got your council was? Okay, we'll move on, and if those congratulations could be noted. Next, I've got Councillor Durham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Dave. They are really exciting plans, and we're obviously fully behind you and the team to contribute to those plans. Just two things. There's obviously the redevelopment of the south platform to provide the capacity for the East Coast Main Line. Now that backs on directly, obviously, to a retail unit, but there's obviously some housing in Appleby Close. What sort of barrier is going to be in place? I can't really see it in the plans. Is there going to be a noise barrier in place for those residents?
So we're in discussions now with planning colleagues about sort of separation distances, screening, noise attenuation, etc. And that's an issue they've raised with that court. So we're actually looking at all those things now as part of the development of the next stage. We've been working with lots of people in terms of distances required from the rail line for certain things, the listed status of the building, planners for how it relates to Neesham Road and the other properties and the church. And that's given us an area to work with. And we're now getting into the detailed design stage and the pre-planning processes to make sure it works from all those angles, and all the acoustics, the screenings are in place to make sure it doesn't impose on to nearby residents and businesses.
Okay, thank you. The second thing is the station in itself is obviously surrounded by significant number of housing. and obviously this development in itself will bring benefits not only for the town but that area. Is there any work going on at the moment in terms of how that regeneration will be developed over and after the project?
Well, obviously we're sort of looking at as part of the High Street Fund, the link up to the station.
Yeah.
And that'll be ongoing work, not just the public realm, but normally when you do a sort of station regeneration project, values uplift around stations. If you notice up and down the East Coast Main Line, developments come forward through the private sector because people want the connectivity on the East Coast Main Line. Central Park's been a sort of good example of that. Businesses have come forward wanting to be close on the East Coast Main Line. CPI, for example, chose us over a few other places because of the connectivity, not just down south, but up to Scotland. People are sort of buying houses on Central Park because of the proximity to the East Coast Main Line. And there will be a sort of general uplift, but certainly the uplift of the Neasham Road area linked to Central Park should start attracting more investment in the area. And similarly, the links down to the town centre should start showing more investment, as well as the council's investment in terms of improved lighting, public realm, etc.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got Councillor Heseltine.
Thanks, Chair. Dave, you talked quite extensively about the railway station bit, and I get it. And having attended meetings with Bill Dixon over the years in relation to both the railway station and the cattle market, you didn't mention sort of the cattle market site, apart from the new pedestrian cycling access up Victoria Roadway to Park Lane and the junction there. Are we looking at the cattle market site being completed around the same time as the station work is done? What's the financial implications to Darlington Borough Council for the development of the cattle mart site? I know we're going to have it, if I remember right, it's going to be a mix of commercial and housing in some form or other. So do we have a finish date for that, or are we still looking at that? And would it not sit in nicely with the timescales to have that whole project, the station and Victoria Road and the cattle market site, done round about the same time? Plus, we've got some new developments coming on Central Park that are due to be done over the next 2 or 3 years. It will enhance the area of the Old Bank Top and that all in one go, but it certainly will be an economic uplift for the borough if everything sits into place for 2024. I know how difficult it can be, but do we have any idea or plans on how that's going to work?
Yeah, so in a previous cabinet report, Councillor Hazeldown, we sort of signalled that the cattle market, we wouldn't be rushing to do anything immediately with that. What we wanted to do is assess the station project, because there might be a need to create sort of temporary parking areas whilst the new multi-storey car park and other parking areas are taken out. So what we said was we'll assess that as the project develops. We might have to hang on to the land and remediate it in the short term for temporary parking or construction facilities. But in the meantime, be master planning the area to see what the art of the possible is and bring it forward as and when we get the time, at the right time. Similarly on Central Park, that's now ready to go, and the plots are being actually actively marketed so that those can come forward as quick as there is interest, because we've put the infrastructure in place in terms of roads and utilities in there for people literally to come in and develop. And as you know, there's a few sites being actively looked at the moment in terms of development. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Dave. And Councillor McCollum.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Dave. It's really good to kind of see it all coming together. Can I align myself with the comments made by Councillor Wallace and echoed by Councillor Durham? It's really fantastic to see such an aspirational project really that could make a real difference to our town in the wider context really coming together, and I'm very grateful to you for that. A couple of questions, if I may. Firstly, how certain is HS2 as a development? It has been a topic of some consternation in recent times. Can I also ask, what is the expected increased capacity at the point of delivery when this is all completed? How much benefit are we going to get in terms of bums on seats on trains? And finally, somewhat similar to Councillor Durham, the Victoria Road interchange, as I'm sure you're aware, is very close in proximity to Pensbury Street, Willow Place and Waverley Terrace, and I'm sure you've had dealings with Waverley Terrace before. Just in a related point to Councillor Hazeldine, what assurance is there that it won't negatively impact residents? I'm sure it'll have to go through planning, but have you had any preliminary conversations about how to ensure that the transport interchange doesn't negatively affect residents? Thank you.
In terms of the first point on HS2, I can't personally guarantee it's going to go ahead. We are working to the published information that it will come forward, and Darlington will be a calling point and have 2 trains an hour, one to London, one to Birmingham, for those frequencies that we've mentioned. And it's sort of right to plan for that, because rail projects take a lot of time, and whilst HS2 in 2030 sounds a long way away, it will soon be on us, and we want to make the most of that HS2 capacity if and when it arrives. In terms of capacity, we know from previous train franchises that now don't exist that the people wanted to run more train services through the Tees Valley and up to Sunderland via the Tees Valley, but they couldn't because of capacity. What the project does is it enables potential for 4 trains per hour on the Tees Valley line, so that's a doubling of capacity. So you could then run those trains, because it's not tied to the East Coast Main Line, however you wanted to. So you could run it as your own. You could have an express service to Middlesbrough that didn't stop everywhere. You could have all sorts of abilities to run train services, or the train operator could. And similarly on the Bishop line, because that then would be not reliant on crossing the East Coast Main Line, you could double the frequency on so you could have a half an hourly service if demand warranted. We've gone from a 2-hour service recently to a 1-hour service, which has shown an increase in demand and an increase in patronage. And I think a lot of people, if it was a half-hour service, might start to use it, given that it's only a sort of 15-20 minute journey from Bishop, avoiding the North Road traffic congestion. And in terms of the Victoria Road interchange, we just get into the detailed, into the start of the concept design, and that will involve lots of consultation with all the neighbouring streets. We have been made aware of the concerns of Waverley Terrace, and we have given guarantees that will not be demolished, following one plan that showed it might be within an area. But we are looking at property acquisition in that area and have already acquired some properties to start making that area a larger public realm and interchange area.
Happy with that, Councillor?
Yeah, fabulous answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If no one else has any hands up, I've got a few to go through. Firstly, just understanding question. As far as I know, Darlington Station is the only station on the East Coast Main Line that doesn't actually have a platform on the East Coast Main Line. And from these plans, I'm not entirely sure whether we will have an actual platform on the main line. Is that the case or not?
There'll be provision made for a platform, a southbound platform, where it will be the trains will have to pull off the East Coast Main Line and go into a bay platform, and then rejoin the East Coast Main Line. So, in the new arrangement, the current platform 1 in the station shed will be the Scotland platform, and one on the Neasham Road side will be the London platform. But basically, it'd be like a bus lay-by. You pull in off the East Coast Main Line, people board or alight, and then it rejoins the East Coast Main Line, but in a very, very quick way. There'll be very fast approaches, because currently one of the issues with Darlington Station is there's a very slow approach from the south. As you probably notice when you're approaching, you start slowing down, probably at Neasham Stadium. And then you definitely know when you're in Darlington when you lean against the wall as you're coming into platform 4 around that sharp bend. So the approaches will be much faster, which in rail terms makes significant savings because the trains can approach faster and get away faster. And seconds on the East Coast Main Line is a lot of money. Is that okay, Councillor Renton?
Sorry, your last point there, what was that again?
So in terms of seconds and minutes on the East Coast Main Line stack up to massive benefits in rail. So if you can save seconds by improving access into platforms, it stacks up over the amount of trains running through and creates capacity along the East Coast Main Line. Having slow approaches takes up time and capacity.
So why can't we have a platform on the main line?
Because then it reduces your resilience, because you could have faster trains bypassing as people are boarding and alighting, so you get it off the East Coast Main Line to others to pass, and so you create that resilience rather than have a train stopped on the East Coast Main Line. You'd always probably want them off the East Coast Main Line in case there was an issue with not being able to get started or it got stuck. You'd always keep the resilience for the East Coast Main Line.
Okay, so it's a positive then.
Yep.
Okay. We've just had the footbridge from Central Park delivered, and I was wondering if there was any urgency to get an accessible bridge put in before all of this construction starts to take place, because obviously if you're taking a pushchair or wheelchair or anything like that from Central Park, you're then having to go down and then up the transport ramp. So is there any plan to have that done sooner rather than later? Or
there isn't plans at the moment, Councillor Renton. It's something we'll be looking at, obviously, as part of the construction phasing. I think the only accessible route at the moment into the station is through Parkgate Yarm Road up the ramp.
Yeah.
So that's the one that Network Rail promote as their accessible route. And if you are using a pushchair or wheelchair, that's the one that use. Where obviously, as part of this, we want to ensure that all 3 accesses to Darlington Station are accessible for all.
Yeah. Okay. Can we have assurances that the historical integrity of the building, the original building, will be fully protected during construction and post?
Well, it's a Grade 2 star listed building, so we will have to go through significant planning approvals and consents to do all the work there. We've had a statement of significance done for the building, and we're in discussions with the conservation officers and the relevant departments about where we put the bridge through, and there's a discussion around where it goes in, protecting the brick lines and things. So it goes in the roof rather than the brick lines, which means the bridge is slightly higher. So we're in all that sort of level of detail at the moment to make sure that the conservation is right. In the original proposals, there was a bridge plan to go all the way through to the portico, but in discussions with the conservation officers, they felt that a refurbished subway and an enhanced subway was less intrusive to the Grade 2 star listed building. So it's a change to the earlier concepts that we thought a bridge would go right the way through from Victoria Road to the Neasham Road, where it's a mixture now of subway and lifts within the middle of the station up to bridges. So I hope that answers your question. That we've got we're in detailed discussions on the preservation and enhancement of the building.
Good. Finally, and this isn't me being an anorak, but will there be somewhere for people to safely watch trains that are coming through? Obviously, when we have things like tornado, the platforms get crowded and can sometimes be quite dangerous. So you've got this public realm area that's going to go on the on the east side, whichever side, will there be an area that's not screened off, so you can actually see the trains?
I will feed that into the customer experience group as a sort of matter to consider in the design. We haven't seen the detailed designs yet, so I can't comment on whether there are those facilities, but I can certainly feed it in for a that sort of consideration, because we're also considering how the Rail Heritage Quarter scheme feeds into it as well, and how we link the two and make sure that the heritage that's up at the head of steam is featured in the station and the new design.
Okay, thank you, David. I don't think there are any more questions, so I propose that we note the report. And do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, and quick show of hands. Yep, I'll take that. Okay. So now we are moving on to an update on Darlington Railway Heritage Quarter. And just quickly before we start, as you know, we had an initial meeting of what will be a special committee on rail heritage, after which I submitted a quad of aims, and the response that I received was that it'd be worth waiting to see what we were updated on during tonight's committee. And after reading the papers and getting briefings from officers, I'm glad we did wait, as a lot of our questions have been answered. And it's great to see that so much work and preparation has already gone into the lead up to 2025. But it's still my intention to hold this task and finish, but we can now streamline our intentions once we have received this update. So please bear that in mind. So any suggestions we can discuss after the presentation. And that's Ian Thompson. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. See if I can share this. I'll see whether my skills are as good as Dave's. Can we see that?
Yep.
Good. Okay.
Do you want to put it into full screen before you is it a PowerPoint presentation?
It's PDF, but is that better? That's.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be fine. Okay.
Yeah, probably get bigger as we go. The way that's sort of set out. Yeah, sorry. In terms of the Rail Heritage Quarter, it's obviously a project that we've been working on now for numerous years, and there's been various stops and starts along the way. I've obviously brought reports and presentations previously to Scrutiny. So really today is just an update on where we're at and where our thinking is through the process. The scheme we currently have 20 million committed funding from TVCA for the Rail Heritage Quarter. There is 5 million allocation within the Towns Fund bid that is going through the process at the moment. And also there is £100,000 within the Historic England project for conservation work on the goods shed, which will be done as part of the overall project as we move into the delivery phase. Again, members will have seen sort of seen the site in previous presentations. Again, this is just obviously to remind members, you've got obviously the car park area here, which will be developed as part of the scheme. Again, the logic for that is because it sits right next to the Skern Bridge, so we want people who are arriving by car to start the journey with obviously the Skern Bridge, which again, as you all know, is the oldest operating railway bridge in the world, and we'll have interpretation down here and potentially sort of virtual reality where you can point your phone up at the bridge and you can see loco number 1 going across there. We'll obviously walk up and across North Road. There'll be a new crossing on North Road, McNair Street. In McNair Street, that will be closed to through traffic, and it will be for obviously residential only. And you will enter the site through the goods shed. And as I say, McNair Street will be reprofiled. You'll have a plaza between the two, between sort of the goods shed and the Head of Steam Museum. We retain the show fields. You've got carriage works over here. You've got the lime cells down in the bottom corner here. There'll be an outdoor play area within the trees and within this sort of space. We'll have a new build shed over on Bonamy Way, over the other side of the railway line, which A1 Trust will be relocated into, and a bridge going across and landing within that building. And then at the far side of at the bottom end of the site, you've got what is the old 1861 shed, where we are looking and working with DRPS and NELPEG, and they will relocate into there. And then there'll be a private siding comes off the main line that will feed the 1861 shed and also the new A1 Trust shed. So we'll have that private siding that obviously we can run steam on, and also they can obviously bring engines in, so they don't necessarily have to use low loaders to bring their engines in. Again, very briefly, that's just a Google map shot of the site that I'm sure members are all familiar with. And this this shot here is basically simply the land ownership. The pale green is what's in Network Rail's ownership, that we obviously negotiating with them at currently what land we want from them, and also the two dark green buildings. What 1861 shed is Network Rail, and also the head of steam is Network Rail's building. We have a 200-year lease on that building, of which I think there's about 150 years left, so we as good as own it. And we obviously own the goods shed and the carriage works, and the purpley brown is obviously the land that we own. And as you'll see, there's a small yellow bit within the site here that is Museum Trust land that we're currently in negotiations with them in terms of being able to acquire that piece of land as well. And then moving on more to the specifics of the site. First building here is the goods shed. As I said, this is obviously the one where we will enter. We'll enter the Rail Heritage Quarter, and in terms of coming into there, you will enter the site through one of the archways. And the intention here is that you will be able to go all the way through here, and then you'll be able to go onto the rail platform, so that anybody going on into the rail station will pass through the site. Or you can turn left into the goods shed prior to getting the train, if you wish to grab a cup of coffee and off you go. You'll also still be able to access the railway platform from the corner of McNair Street and North Road, as when the goods shed's closed, obviously, so people can still get access to the platform. Within the goods shed, we'll have sort of the catering cafe facility, as well as secondary retail spend, shop, and also sort of toilet facilities as well. And the orangey coloured splodges on here, they're where, again, this is just indicative. Obviously, you'll have objects, so you might have some trains displayed in here, and other appropriate objects displayed within the goods shed, and then a cafe laid out. And on this plan here, again, this is some of these things may or may not come off to fruition as we move forward. There's obviously a glass frontage put onto the goods shed to obviously extend the footage there, but obviously not interfering with the structure of the goods shed, and retaining all the features of the goods shed. And any interventions we make in here, they won't necessarily touch the fabric of the goods shed other than the floor. So in future years, when things change, those can quite easily be taken out, and ultimately the goods shed is as it was. So we're not intending to make any significant structural changes. And obviously, again, with it being obviously listed, we obviously got to work through appropriately with conservation and Historic England. And looking from McNair Street, this is obviously the elevation that you would see, and then looking from the head of steam site, you'd see this elevation with a glass extension there on the site. And then just moving on, these are again sort of artist impression of what it may well look like. So don't hold me to account. These are obviously just early impressions, concepts. So as you see, the doors that you can see here over in this corner will be where you would walk through onto the railway station, or you turn left into the goods shed, with obviously your counter and catering and everything in this particular area, and again exhibits. And then as you go through on the other side, you've got your cafe area, and again exhibits there throughout. And again, as I say, the key is to actually celebrate this building, so the building is part of the experience as we go through. And then moving into the head of steam itself, the museum as is, and to a certain extent, this element of the project is the least developed at this moment in time, and the reason for that is we wanted to be in a position where we had the interpretation designers on board, because this element of the scheme is the interpretation design is key to this, to make this actually the elements that we want. That this is where you're going to get the wow. And you're going to get the experience of the augmented, the virtual reality, and everything else within there. So as you enter into the museum, the area here in green, this is where the virtual experience ride in sort of 4D would be. And I say, very early days. This is all is to work through and to develop the storyboards and to develop on that. And I think, as we've talked about before, potentially what that will be is you'll go into probably something that looks like a railway carriage, and you will sit in there, and around you there will be screens. You'll be surrounded by sort of screens and also projections, and you will also experience smells and heat and everything else. And ultimately you will obviously probably start travelling on the back of loco number 1 in 1825, work through time, and end up, however, we are in 2135, 21, whenever it is, who knows. And again, part of the creation of some of the stuff we want to do in here, we want to use sort of local residents to be part of these sort of films. So, you know, you bring local people into this process, and there'll be variants of the ride. So some of them might be Easter themed, Halloween themed, Christmas themed. So again, this is sort of very, very early stages of what the actual head of steam, the museum itself, will look like. So it's the least developed element at the moment, but now that we've got the interpretation people on board, we will start to work through that in more detail. And obviously, once we get a little bit further down the road on interpretation, I'll bring a presentation back for members to go through exactly what that's starting to look like and how that's starting to develop. Again, these are just concepts of you know, potentially the head of steam visual as you walk in there. Then moving on to the carriage works, where currently A1 Trust and NELPEG are located. This will become on the left hand side here, as I look at the screen, will be an open exhibition gallery space for changing exhibitions, and on the other on the right hand side will be the archive and some study rooms and meeting space within there for the archive, and also with working with partners in terms of utilising that space. And again, certainly probably in 2025, this space and potentially the archive space will be an ideal space to display the early engine exhibition that we're looking to create, which obviously we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. And then again, these are just visuals of potentially what the space could look like. Left hand side in terms of where A1 are, the open exhibition space, and then looking at potentially the other side where we'd have the archive and the meeting rooms and study rooms. Again, obviously the building itself tells the story. We'll not be making significant interventions into the buildings because the buildings are part of the authenticity and the enjoyment of the site, and they are historic in their own right in terms of a collection of buildings. Then the 1861 shed, again, if members aren't sure where that is, that's just at, off Westall Road, just down past where the scrapyard is there. So we'll be, obviously, again, we're in discussions with Network Rail in acquiring that, and ultimately we will be looking to relocate NELPEG and DRPS in there, who we're working with at the moment. Again, very early sketch drawings of where we're at in this process. So we'll be looking to split that shed and have one organisation in one side and one in the other. And then in terms of the live engineering, some of these again are just visuals. This is obviously a shed that currently exists. But looking at obviously where that will be located, it's obviously on the other side of the railway line. And as you can see, the building here is the head of steam, so you can see where it will be located in terms of its location. And this element here is a bridge going across the railway line, so you can get from here across to this side of the site, and you'll land in the top of this building here, where A1 will be located. And you can see here your tracks. Again, these are just sketches, but tracks coming in with a turntable there as well. And again, just obviously artist impression of the type of potential types of buildings and bridges that are going across. And again, within that building, what we're shown here is that there'll be a view and gallery above. So obviously, visitors to the museum and to the site will be able to go into that building and be able to see what's going on underneath in the A1, whether that's looking at obviously engines that are in there, whether there's work going on and building, and so on. So people will get the opportunity to look in there with interpretation in there as well. So again, that sort of shows the location, and again, sort of a bridge here that goes across, and just types of bridges. Again, it'll not be going across water, it will be going across the rails there. So ultimately, that's just showing that location. You come off and then you'll walk across into carriage works there. And then again, in terms of the site, this is just showing the types of obviously potential finishes that we look at, where you've got sort of hard landscape, car parking and other areas, plazas, and ultimately in some of the areas you'd have wildflower meadows and grassed areas on other elements of the site. So it's just really this slide here is just showing the types of finishes that we're thinking of currently to the landscaping areas, because again, making the site appropriate and fitting for everything that's going to take place. And again, this just gives an indication of obviously other sites where you've got paths weaving through and wildflower meadows and meadowland. And again, these again are just sort of precedent type shots of types of landscape, and as you can see here, they're using obviously the lines in terms of reflecting what tracks might be, and through the hard landscaping as well. And then there is going to be a bespoke themed play area on the site, as I've said, that will be within the trees and some of the open space. This will be a significant play area that will be themed along the Stockton and Darlington railway theme, so that obviously it becomes an area probably for children aged up to about 12-year-old, although it will be appropriate for others as well. And again, what we're trying to make this play area within the limits of play areas is to make it as accessible as we possibly can, so everybody can enjoy the experience of this play areas. And again, the trees will be brought into that experience as well. And we'll be going out in the new year to engage expert designers in terms of outdoor play provision, because ultimately what we want here is something that isn't any play area or any town. It's something that really is meaningful, and it creates a wow feature in itself, and it creates a feature that obviously children want to come back to regularly, which therefore mum and dad have got to come with them, which therefore again experience the site and ultimately using the other facilities on the site. And then one of the other features of the site will be that the wider Stockton and Darlington walking and cycling route will come through the site. So it will obviously come through from the 1861 shed, go through the site, cross for members that know the bridge that goes under the railway here, that's probably what near as opposite McDonald's. So the private rail siding and the walking and cycling route will come across that bridge onto the onto the rail heritage site, cross over Bonamy Way, come down and then come back round, and then obviously ultimately the walking and cycling route will go off and through the rest of the town on the route and continue its way through to Stockton. And again, just some sort of concepts of how it may well look in terms of your walking and cycling going through the site. So again, a real great opportunity. So going through the site again means that the visitors or the people using that will pass the site and therefore hopefully come and see the site and use the site and spend a few pennies while they're there. So that gives sort of a real overview of where we're at in terms of the development of the Rail Heritage Quarter. As we sit here today, we will probably be starting on site summer 21. The work will start on the Bonamy Way side of the site, where we will be putting obviously the new shed and also refurbishing the 1861 shed. Once they are built, that will then allow us to move our partners, DRPS, NELPEG and A1 Trust across, and then we will start obviously on that side, on the head of steam side of the site, to refurbish those buildings and create the outdoor spaces, the play areas and everything else, with a view ultimately for the project being finished towards the back end of 2023, early 24, in real good time, obviously before 2025 celebrations, because the last thing we want is to be running right up to the wire. So we're in a position now where we are comfortable that obviously this will be delivered in terms of finishing late 23, early 24. And then moving on to 2025 celebrations, we've obviously started some of the work around obviously the 2025 celebrations, because while 2025 seems a long time away, it will certainly be here before we know it, in the scale of what our ambitions are as we sit here today. So there's a number of strands of work currently underway. You've got the early locomotive exhibition, which I'll talk about in a little bit, the live steam, little inventors, live outdoor theatre, and then a couple of other things that are currently in thought process and development. So the key bits that obviously I suppose Darlington are leading on at the moment is the early locomotive exhibition. What we're trying to achieve here is that in 2025, probably running from Easter through until this time of year, the October half term, we will have an exhibition of early engines from around the world, originals and replicas. That piece of work is currently the feasibility and the work is taking place at the moment around that, and we have obviously part of that is to pull together a list of locos. There's probably contact being made at the moment with about 30 organisations and individuals who own those particular vehicles that we would want to bring. To obviously ultimately we need to understand and the conservation implications for those vehicles. What we want to try and get as part of this piece of work is to get in principle support for those vehicle owners to participate in the event. And as I said earlier there, what we are looking for is it's a case of obviously national and international vehicles that we'd want to bring that have never been in the same place at the same time. And also in terms of this piece of work, when it concludes, it will bring together what the commercial costs are for moving those locos to the area, and also looking at options around how many we would bring versus what the cost of that is overall. So there's some clarity around that, and therefore we know what the scale of the ask is. This piece of work will conclude in Q2 of 2021, and then obviously once that has concluded, then there'll be a decision process to go through in terms of the next stages about how we want to move this forward. But in terms of a power of an exhibition like this, that we would be displaying early locos across the Stockton and Darlington area. So we'd be looking at putting locos obviously within our site, and not embarrassed there that we obviously want as much of that exhibition as we can here. We're working closely with Stockton, and they're obviously working closely with us, and we'd want to obviously display some of their locos in Stockton, and also in terms of working closely with the National Railway Museum. We've obviously got they've got great opportunities with obviously their stock, and them being involved in the project as well. So the power of something like this, and the attraction of something like this to bring national and international visitors to Tees Valley, Durham and the wider region will be significant. I mean, depending on the scale of what we can achieve here, you'll not get a hotel bed in the area during that particular period of being able to pull this scale of exhibition off. And then the other element that we're leading on is we are looking obviously around what we can do with regard to live steam leading up to the 27th of September 2025, and also on the actual day. There are a number of options, and varying in scale and size. I mean, there's obviously the option of putting narrow gauge within the Rail Heritage Quarter site and running engines on that, replicas on that. There is, because we're creating private rail siding, which probably is, I don't know, is around about 1/4 of a mile long, there's the opportunity of using that to obviously put rides on there of obviously historic engines and also new build locos such as Tornado and Prince of Wales, which is currently in build by the A1 Trust. And it'd be great to see those sort of new build locomotives against some of the historic locomotives. There's a desire to try and bring across from America one of the American Frontier / Wild West trains that could operate on there. You can imagine the pull something like that would have in the area to provide rides up and down that private siding. We're looking at how we can bring live steam into Stockton as well. And running up to the 27th of September, there obviously will be lots of lots of opportunities around train charters and special excursions and events leading up to that. And one of the things that I'm really keen that we do as part of this sort of special charters, and A1 are happy to support us as well, is that actually what we do is we provide a steam train charter excursion for some of our young people in the deprived areas, particularly around in Northgate area and in Stockton and in the Shildon area. So it would be really great to have this train, an experience that those children would probably never ever be able to do. So one of the key things for me is to try and actually pull this off as well as we move forward. I'm sure I'm going to get this next word wrong. To try and obviously create sort of a planned Dampf experience. I think it is a German word, and I think that simply means just obviously putting steam on the front of carriages. What we would be trying to possibly do there, if it is possible to bring this off, is just your normal trains that are running up and down the Bishop line, your normal service trains, to actually pull them with steam as opposed to diesel engines, and those individuals using those service trains are just paying their normal ticket price. So whereas obviously charter trains, you're paying the rates appropriate to be able to do that. Whereas on this type of event, you just pay your £2 or your £5, whatever your ticket price is from Bishop to Darlington. And again, this is the art of the possible. What can we do here? These are the various options. And then in terms of the 2025 celebration on the 27th of September, what we are trying to pull together now and be in a position that we can actually deliver this is to be able to replicate 1825 with the replica of loco number 1 running across Skerne Bridge, pulling carriages across Skerne Bridge, because the power and the impact of that will be absolutely massive, and the national and international appeal of that will be significant. And then in terms of obviously a historic cavalcade of appropriate engines on the Bishop line, there's no way we will be looking to or could replicate what happened in 1975. The rail network has changed significantly since then, but obviously in terms of being able to use the Bishop line, potentially the Weardale line, of being able to obviously have a number of engines, appropriate engines running on the day. So again, all of this is about what's the art of the possible. How can we pull this together? What can we do? And again, this piece of work will conclude in the same timeline as the other piece of work, and then decision processes that we need to make with partners, because at the end of the day, the power of this is the collection of the partners around this, the local authorities, the combined authority, and also the National Railway Museum as well. So again, absolutely significant event if we are able to pull this off as we go forward. Then moving on to Little Inventors, again, this is in its early days. Again, what we're looking for here is a programme leading up to working with the schools, getting them involved in terms of the story in up to 1825, and being involved in obviously building structures, trains, whether that's with cardboard or whatever moving forward. Obviously, once we get the new sheds up, and we've got A1 Trust and others working, and NELPEG, DRPS, there's opportunities there of young people going and seeing that and seeing the art of the possible with regard to that, sort of culminating as we move forward, running up to 2025 with various obviously competitions along the way, building up towards obviously that the 27th of September, where obviously there may be a competition between the three areas, and the winners in those coming together displaying obviously what they've done over this period. So again, early days, early thoughts. We're working with partners and developing that as we move forward. Stockton, our colleagues in Stockton are looking in and working with us, leading on the live outdoor theatre work. The thought, again, this is early thoughts of significant outdoor performances, I suppose Kinran style potentially, within probably 3 locations across whether that's obviously Durham, Shildon area, whether it's Shildon or Durham, obviously working with colleagues over there. Also, obviously, an event in Darlington and events in Stockton. Now, this may be a one-off event. It may be events that takes place leading up to the 27th of September. So that work is ongoing. Potentially in Darlington, we're thinking of a procession-style event starting up at the Rail Heritage Quarter, moving down North Road, with certain performances and activities taking place down there, telling Darlington story with regard to Stockton and Darlington Railway, culminating obviously on the Market Square. Again, as I say, at this moment in time, this is the start of the process, so it's very early thoughts, and that work has been thought through and developed up in the coming months. And then some other things, obviously, that potentially looking at is Councillor McEwen in his role of mayor has launched his International Mayors event, where obviously again connecting mayors across the world in terms of where there are rail firsts, and the first event will take place next year on the 19th of April, where we reach out to world mayors, and we'll have some virtual event takes place. There's an international conference that colleagues in Durham are leading on and the Friends of Stockton and Darlington Railway are involved in the university in terms of pulling together an international conference around the 27th of September time, around obviously the importance of rail, etc. And again, that's just very early thought days, and that'll get developed. And there will be no doubt significant number of local events going on across the 26 miles that various obviously organisations, groups, community organisations will want to participate in, will want to organise along the line, and that will be absolutely great to see, and they should just actually naturally develop themselves of how they wish to celebrate the events. Again, just a photograph there of the tornado going across Skern Bridge on 27th of September this year, the 195th, where the Mayor of Stockton and the Mayor of Darlington, alongside the leader and a couple of other people, were on there on a COVID safe event. And we launched the countdown to 2025. And I will say a big thanks here to Network Rail, to Northern Gas, and to the Environment Agency for the work they did, as well as obviously obviously council staff, the work they did in terms of preparing Skern Bridge. It looked magnificent there. It was well overgrown a fortnight before that, so there was some significant work. So again, my thanks to everybody who was involved in achieving that. And then finally, I'm sure you have all seen this information now, so if you'd like to log in and keep the loco in Darlington. And thanks for that. I am more than happy to take any questions any members have and answer if I am able to at this moment in time.
Okay. Thanks, Ian. And thanks to you and your team for all the work you've been doing. It's all very exciting. And I think what you said about the need to draw in crowds for the actual 200th anniversary is absolutely right, because we're only going to get one chance at this. And also, I love the idea of paying a few quid for a steam ride. That's great. So I've got quite a few questions, so I'll start off with 2, and then I'll open the floor up just to break it up. The first question, you mentioned the lime cells in your indicative site layout plan, but you don't actually mention any intentions for the lime cells. I think they're currently up for sale. Why is that when it's such an important historical building?
We are in the process of acquiring the lime cells. So we will be buying the lime cells as part of the overall project. And we are working very closely, you may be aware, with the Friends of Stockton and Darlington Railway on a heritage or a National Lottery Heritage Fund bid. that is a partnership between the three authorities and the Friends of Stockton Darlington Railway. The intention would be, as we sit here today, that the lime cells will become the operating base for the Friends of Stockton Darlington Railway, and also we're looking at a community engagement programme and an activity programme as part of the Rail Heritage Quarter, with a view to something commencing in 2023 for a 5-year programme of engagement across the 26 miles, which will be based out of the lime cells, and will work across the 26 miles with the Friends having a significant role in that. And that there'll be a bid going into the National Lottery Heritage Scheme once that is open and able to submit that application.
Okay, thank you. And another question on your head of steam visual. It looks like you've got locomotion number 1 lifted off the tracks. I mean, thankfully it's still in the museum, but is that what your intention is, to not have them on the track anymore?
Again, I think as I said in the presentation, the layout, the format, the interpretation of what we do in the head of steam building is in very, very early days, and we need to work that through with the new interpretive consultants that we've just got on board. We only, as recently as the last week, I think we had a site walk around with them. I've got some workshops with them next week, or the week after, sorry, because it's there's a lot of work to do in terms of developing that thought process, that scheme. But yeah, I don't doubt that some of them will be off the line, off the actual tracks, because we need to obviously try and get more in there and to see how that works. But again, what I'll do is, once we've got something that's a little bit more firmed up, we'll come back to scrutiny to go through, because actually this is the real exciting stuff in terms of how we interpret obviously the site, and how we make this a site that you want to come back to time and time again. The interpretation element is fundamental to the success of the site.
Okay, thank you. Right, apologies, I don't know when you put your hand up or order in, so I'll just go as it appears on my screen. So I have Councillor Wallace, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ian, it's wonderful to see how, the early vision and the ideas that were kicking around are beginning to be realised, and whole new ideas and opportunities are being explored. I think the idea of moving Nailpeg out to that good shed on Westsow Road, I think makes a huge amount of sense. And there's the vision here is so exciting. I dropped an email to the chair yesterday. I think the one thing is scrutiny that we don't have, and I understand that things may be a little cloudy at the moment, is some of the figures that underpin the vision and the ambition, and I wonder whether you can help us with that. If you could just forgive me, just a bit of interchange if you don't mind, Chair. Looking between now and 2025, what are the likely capital that the council will have to put in, combined authority, and the bids we will make? I mean, where is that money coming from? And then also, what are the likely revenue costs for us as an authority between now and the time of the festival?
Yeah, if I can, Chair, in terms of capital investment around the Rail Heritage Quarter, we've obviously got 20 million committed as we sit here today from the combined authority. So that money is there. Within the Towns Fund bid that is currently being assessed by government, of that 25 million fund, there is a 5 million ask in there for the Rail Heritage Quarter, and also there's also additional funding in there around North Road, looking at obviously purchasing Peace House there. And, yeah, and obviously other improvements along North Road, and also in terms of Northgate House taking purchasing that and removing and flattening that, and lots of obviously other things. So there's some big asks of the Towns Fund, and also there's a small ask within where there's an allocation of 100,000 within the Historic England Has pot to contribute towards buildings at risk, which is obviously for the good shed. So that is within the project as well. At the moment, in terms of Darlington Borough Council's contribution, at the moment it's officer time, and it'll be officer time leading up to that. Currently, there isn't an ask of the council. However, we are there is obviously 500,000, as you'll be aware, councillor, within the Futures Fund that the council has set aside, and obviously some of that money will be about facilitating the work up to 2025 and how we get to that point, and using that to do some of the work around obviously preparing ourselves for 2025 and for the festivals in 2025.
Thank you. If I just to follow on from that, and that's very helpful. Looking at the range of the offer, Ian, that we have here now, and it's becoming a bit clearer. And I appreciate nothing is nailed down. I mean, I'm looking at the goods shed, and that at the moment you're thinking of that as a sort of cafe, retail, secondary spend, which I understand. I understand why. One of the problems we have with the Railway Museum at the moment is it doesn't change a lot. And there's not a great deal to do. It's the kind of thing even people in Darlington only really go the once, and it's always been very difficult going back. Now, clearly there's been an expanded offer here, but is there enough here for? I mean, what are just thinking about the visitor number? What are we looking to attract, and do we believe we have enough offer here for people to come back again and again? And of course, we don't know what's going to happen. We desperately hope the engine behind Councillor Renton is going to stay there. But if there is a big locomotion number one size hole in the offer, how do we think that's going to play out in terms of the attractiveness of what the vision that you're developing, that will have to stay in place for many years after 2025?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that one of the keys is that it's a great facility now with limited resource and a great bunch of staff in there. But as you say, it's a very static offer, and once you've been, unless you're coming for the special events and the regulars, which a lot of residents do. Now there is going to be there'll be a significantly improved event programme, which will give reason for you to come in on more occasions. I think understanding, and I think when I come back to Scrutiny with what we're thinking about from the virtual reality, from augmented reality, from the ride experience, that will be so different to any other sort of railway experience, where people will want to come back to see that. There will be the play area will be such a significant attraction that will bring people in. On what we want to do here is open this site up to the local community as well, because the local community never use the site. Because the local community don't see themselves as museum users. Well, this isn't a museum anymore. This wants to be an experience to go to enjoy, and you want to go back because the cafe is going to be in such a wonderful setting that it's going to be, pardon my term, on the regular Blue Rinse Brigade. So people are coming in regularly. So this group will come every Tuesday. This group come, so it's that regular trade that we want to get back into there. And again, by bringing people who may come to the play area, might then step into the museum and actually start to see that and start to enjoy that. And it's going to be a playful site. It's going to be, throughout. We need to make sure that education and learning is done in an exciting way. Some of the changing, but by creating in where A1 now, there'll be a changeable exhibition space. So there'll be different exhibitions going on over time. Obviously, the first exhibition, hopefully, if we manage to swing this, there'll be this early engine exhibition, and then there'll be other things going in there. And actually, Mike Crawshaw was having conversations yesterday with the Arts Council, who were really keen on this and would want to probably support us, hopefully. So I think there's going to be lots of opportunity of changing things, and with some of the with the ride experience and the virtual reality, it's fairly easy in the background to change that for seasonal variations and other things.
I'll stop there, Chair. Other people want to come in, but if I could come in, I've got some other questions. I'll come in a bit later, if I may.
Of course. Thanks, Nick.
Sorry, Chair, if I can. I think one of the questions I didn't answer there, Councillor Wallace, is our target in the business plan at the moment is for 250,000 visitors a year.
Okay. Thanks, Ian. And I'm going to jump in with a quick question there. And it is related. I've got a slight concern that the Rail Heritage Quarter might become a sort of fenced off area as opposed to being fully integrated into the Northgate area. Although entrance to the museum isn't expensive, it can often put families off if they, say, wanted to go to the park or go and see the A1 Trust. So is it going to be an open area with certain paid, or are you going to pay for the whole experience, or how will that work?
last year, I believe it was now, a report went through Cabinet where it included the fact that the museum would be a free access. So we won't be charging to go into the museum. We will charge for the experience, the ride. That will be a charged activity, and access to the site will be free. So that people coming in to use the play area, that will be free usage. Access into the museum to see most of the stuff on the site will be free. Some of the exhibitions that we have in may well be chargeable exhibitions depending on what they are. And again, in terms of the business model, some of the income the income will come through obviously car park fees that we obviously will build into the operating model. Alongside that, also the secondary spend, the cafe. And all the other activities that will go on the site, because some of the special events may well be paid for. So that the access to the site, the majority of the site will be free of charge, and actually it will be open to anybody to come in. The entrance will be through the goods shed. You've got to come in through the goods shed, and it will be locked at a certain point on an evening. And the site does need to be secure because obviously there's some significant assets on there that need to be protected. And part of the loan agreements that we have on those assets, obviously we've got to make sure that it is a secure site.
Are we talking 7 days a week or?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Okay, so I have Councillor Cousins, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Ian, you've done a fabulous job, and like you said, it's the same as the train station. It's been a long time coming, and a lot of hard work's gone into it. It's great to see, it coming that close, that close. But I have about 4 things. One, you've just touched on security, and I was thinking of, the play area. At the moment, we have a severe sort of disrespect of our play areas. So, on an evening, will the play area be secure?
Yeah. Do you want me to answer that first?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in terms of the overall site will be a fenced, secure site.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be, and it will be locked when it isn't staffed, and there will be obviously CCTV throughout the site. And at times, if we have major exhibitions and we have major assets on there, there may well be security staff on the site as well on an evening.
Brilliant, brilliant. You did say it was free, most of it. Lots of stuff being free. Will there be like Sheldon and all the other places where you have sort of donation, fancy things, get your penny made and things, you're all penny minted and things like that. Will there be donation things?
Yes, we're not shy. We'll be
shy beds getting out. Yeah, shy beds. 2 more things and I won't be long. You say, you're sort of little inventors, you're saying about cardboard models and things like that. Have you thought about approaching the colleges, the young people in the engineering courses, doing replicas?
Yeah, and that's obviously something that will grow in terms of this programme over the next sort of 4 or 5 years. Yeah, we'd want a broad range of young people involved.
Fabulous.
It's early days in the thought process, but yeah, it's great to have, again, a number of colleges competing and actually building something that they can put on the tracks on the private side.
Fabulous. Yeah, wonderful. The last thing, your sort of festival, the day, the grand day, could there not be a carnival? We used to have our railway carnival, Carnival King, Carnival Queen. Could we not do something like that again?
There'll be lots of opportunities to further develop the event activity festival programme as we move forward. At the moment, we're focusing on really the difficult to do and the things that need so much lead-in time to get them delivered.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I'm going to quickly jump in again because I have a lot and I want to spread them out. Apologies. From what I understand, the consultative group was set up just before COVID, made up of several rail NGOs, non-government organisations for Pauline, and that was as a sounding board for the Heritage Quarter, but it hasn't met obviously because of COVID for a long time. Do you know if they're likely to be reinstated anytime soon to make sure? Obviously we've got a lot of updates coming through now and that'd be a good time for that to start up again.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in terms of the various organisations and groups that were involved in that consultative forum, we are talking to them now regularly in terms of their elements of the project. So while there hasn't been the overall collective pulled together, we're still talking to a number of those organisations and groups, whether that's A1, NELPEG, DRPS, the Friends of Stockton and Darlington, and some of the others in terms of moving forward. But yeah, at some point, and again, it depends where we end up in our with regard to our level of alert with COVID. In terms of as soon as we can, we do want to bring people together in that forum. But we are keeping in touch regularly. And I think one of the things we were talking about the other a week or two ago was possibly doing some sort of newsletter to update the groups as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barch.
Hello. So obviously, yeah, everything we've seen tonight is actually really excellent. Commend everyone who's been working on it. One question I have links into what Councillor Wallace was saying in terms of what we have to offer. Obviously, Shildon's a much bigger site and has a lot more going on than we do and probably will have doing. What are we going to be able to do to encourage people to come from the Shildon site to the Darlington site? So in terms of day trips and transport links between here and Shildon, if Darlington only takes half a day, are we going to be able to travel to Shildon for people who don't have cars, more links in that sort of way? And what are we going to do to encourage people who are at the Shildon site also come and visit the Darlington site? Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, again, a real valid point. I think the partnership working that we are doing and we're developing with our colleagues, whether that's in Stockton, in Durham, and ourselves, and the National Railway Museum is key to that. And that obviously what ultimately what we want around here is that actually somebody will come to Darlington, or preferably, or they might go to Stockton, or they might go to Durham and stay. But actually what they've come to see these wonderful sites, and actually they get to them by train where they can. You know, so you travel, you might go to Shildon, then you might come down to us, and then you get on the train, you go down to York. So it's about collectively pulling that partnership together. And I think none of us need to be shy about what we've got, but we also need to make sure that we share. And there's that real strong partnership around, because we are different. We will have a completely different offer to locomotion. We will never compete, nor do we want to compete with locomotion. What we will have and I would say this, it'll be better. We'll have a different way of doing it. We're going to tell the story of Stockton Darlington Railway. We'll tell Darlington's story in that, and we'll do a lot of that through virtual augmented reality, and in that way, when changing exhibitions and things like that. So we're not here to compete. We're here to complement each other.
And yeah, I think if we're able to connect all exhibits and sites via train, I think that would be something certainly beneficial in terms of bringing it away from the sort of competition.
Yeah. You know, I think again, in terms of, you know, why do the car garages all locate next to each other? It's because actually it's providing that offer that people can go across. Yes, they are competing with each other, but at the end of the day, by being together, they make it easier for people, and it's easy to get from Darlington to Shildon on the train, and vice versa. And why wouldn't you do that? And you know, you come into a railway museum, so why not turn up on a train?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor, and thank you for your brilliant camera work there as well. Can I bring Councillor Wallace back in if you still want to come back in?
Thank you. Just a couple of points, sort of following on from what we were discussing before. I was not quite clear, Ian, about the car parking arrangements.
Yeah.
Are you proposing to have car parking on the existing car parking site? No, sorry. The car park. I'll just pull the presentation up again if I can, and then I'll be able to. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, just bear with me. So if you, this is the overall site. Yes.
So what you've got, where can you see where my arrow is here?
Yeah.
This is the exercise for less building, which was Magnet off John Street.
Okay.
And then there's a piece of shrubland here.
Right.
Which we are in the process of acquiring.
Yeah.
And Skern Bridge is here.
Okay.
So this is going to be the landing point for cars coming for the car park to the side. So cars will park here. Mm-hmm. We've gone through lots of options and look, can we use the existing site? Should we look at other options? But there is real strong logic for a car park being there because you are actually landing right next to Skern Bridge, which is the oldest operating bridge in the world. Nobody else has got that. Nobody else can tell that story. So if you come by car, which the reality is certainly for the foreseeable future, people are going to be using cars. Eventually, hopefully, people move away from cars and more are arriving on the train, which they'll cross Skern Bridge. So ultimately, that's where the car park.
So they'll have to cross North Road to get to.
So, yeah. So you'll come up here. There's going to be a new pedestrian crossing on North Road to facilitate people getting across. And obviously, there's a study there that colleagues in highways are currently engaged in to look at that.
I'd simply observe, Ian, that on 250,000 people a year, some days you're going to have upward of 1,000. Summer you'll have over 1,000 visitors a day. I would imagine that would be the ambition. It'll be, and there'll be coaches as well as we would hope coaches as well as cars. I mean, clearly, there's more room there than we have at the moment. That's not a big car parking area for the exhibit that in terms of the ambition, the numbers that we're looking to attract. I mean, clearly that's something we're going to do more work. I don't know. That's the second point. Maybe you come back on the issue about community engagement, Ian, because I think from memory, community engagement, particularly in Northgate and North Road, was key to unlocking some of the money as far as the grants were concerned, and it's so important that residents in Northgate, in particular to the south of the site, feel this is part of their community and they own it. I've seen some of the 45,000 mentioned in there, the school work, but it seems like we've got a lot further to go as far as the ambition, as far as community engagement with the ward councillors and other community leaders is concerned. If you could just flesh out that a little bit more. And a final point, and I'll say no more, Councillor Renton, not a question for Ian, but the stuff at the back I read about History and Heritage Festival 2020, People and Places. I don't know about other members of the committee. I had no idea about any of that. Now, I appreciate some of this is clearly Bishop Auckland, it's Durham's turn this year, I guess, and they're hosting some of this, but a lot of this is in Darlington as well. And I would urge, and I'm going to send an email to comms tonight, because I really feel we should be pushing. Some of these are based in Darlington. Chris Lloyd and others are taking part. It's our assets, and I've seen nothing in the Echo or on our website or elsewhere. And I think in the short time, because it kicks off on Friday, the short time we have, we all need to be doing everything we can to be promoting this festival. There you go, Chair. I'll shut up now.
Okay, Chair. If I can answer those two points in terms of obviously car park. The car park obviously, it doesn't look very big, but it's a 250 car capacity car park. And coach drop-off is over in Station Road here. So this will be created, the coach drop-off here. So that coaches aren't obviously dropping off on North Road or car park. The coaches will come in, school coaches, and obviously, hopefully some of the holiday company coaches will drop off in this area here. So obviously we're working closely with colleagues in highways in terms of modelling that, and again, hopefully over time more and more people actually arriving by train, because they're arriving into Banktop and coming across that way. Because as Dave said earlier, there's some real strong links between here and Banktop, and we need to obviously encourage that. Part of the Northgate, the Northgate project and the HAS project and the Northgate master planning work is to connect. It's connecting the town centre with obviously the Rail Heritage Quarter. And in terms of community engagement, I completely agree. It is critical to this, and it is what we are wanting to do, and what we are doing, and what we're starting to do. We've done quite a bit of work now in the two schools in terms of Corporation and Northwood through some of the Into Work project. where we're getting the young people really involved in that. And as I say, in terms of developing the play area, we want young people involved in that development work and engaged in that. And some of the work we're doing with Wilmot Dixon, the main contractor, and the obviously social responsibility element, they are heavily getting involved in sort of that community aspect. And again, I would love to see some of those young people in the area ending up with apprenticeships, working with A1 Trust in the going forward in the future. So yeah, I completely get and understand and want the community engaged in this.
There was one more point there, but I think you're doing an additional update on the Heritage Action Zone, aren't you, Ian?
Yeah, I'll speak to it. Obviously, it's not. It's unfortunately Richard couldn't be with us. So if there's any technical questions, I may well need to defer them to Richard. But yeah,
I wanted to jump in there so that I got you while you had the map up, because I just wanted to. Could you just confirm the route of the cycling and walking? The route of the 26-mile cycling and walking route, because obviously the station area is going to be closed on a night, but I think you said it's going to the north of the track. So
in effect, it'll come again. The final route's obviously being worked through the site, depending on where the private rail sign will come through the site, cross the existing bridge that's there, come round here. It'll cross Bonamy Way. And then come back. Then, whoops, sorry, I'm miles all the way there. Yeah, it'll come across and then come back across into the site.
Sorry, not into the fenced part of the site though.
No, you would come back round and through the goods shed. So say the final detail of exactly where that goes, because it's on the other side of the site. The cycle and walk route is on the other side of the line. It's not on the head of steam side. It's on that side, because obviously ultimately the walking and cycling route obviously comes across the Durham Darlington boundary, comes down towards obviously Burtree Lane. It follows part of it does follow the existing line, and it'll come round through the side off along across over to Horton, across up along the DETC, across the 66 onto Middleton St George and through onto the airport and into Stockton.
But I'm just trying to clarify. So the actual walking cycling route is going to go through the site that's going to be closed at 5 o'clock.
No, it'll come through this. The walking and cycling route will be on this side of the site, and they will be able to come through. Yeah.
Where will it cross North Road?
It will cross on Bonamy Way, and then on the north. Again, the finer detail of the connections is being worked through at the moment, so that's why I'm being a bit woolly. And actually, there's a report going to Cabinet, I think, in November. With regard to the cycling and walking route, but the further work and the connections has been worked through.
Okay, I'll wait for that. Okay, thank you, and thanks for your patience, councillors. So, Councillor Allen, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just 3 points, if I may, Ian. On all of the exhibits, and including the what looks to be a fantastic little themed play area, have we or will we make sure that every kind of disability can be catered for, including the visually impaired and their guide dogs? That's the first one. The second point was where you showed the slide on early locomotive exhibition. You mentioned an event that was going to progress, as it were, from Easter and through till about October half-term time. Is that just for 2025, or will that be perhaps an annual or a biannual event? And my third and last point was on the slide headed live steam. It isn't that I don't like what I'm seeing, because I do, but it does seem a little bit ambitious in the time limit we have. And it also reads a little bit like a wish list. So I wondered how much of it you'd managed to pin down yet, if I may.
Yeah, no, fine. In terms of accessibility of the site, yeah, that's one of our key criteria, to make the site as accessible as we possibly can. There will be certain limitations because of the nature of the site. The play area, again, the part of the key criteria in the brief in that is to make it an accessible play area for obviously various elements. So yeah, that's one of our key drivers in terms of doing that, and we will work closely obviously with organisations that we work with, and there'll be accessibility consultants working with us on the project as well. In terms of the early loco exhibition, that will take place as I sit here today, from Easter 2025 to, as I say, probably October half term 2025, and then those engines will go back to their owners. It will be an extremely costly exhibition to pull off and to put on, so it's not something we will be looking to repeat on an annual or a biannual basis. I think this is probably the first time that the engines that we are going to get will have been gathered in the same place at the same time. So obviously it isn't something that you'd probably be able to replicate. In terms of live steam, yeah, what I'm showing there is what potentially we would want to look at. Those are the options we are looking at, and then as I say, in Q2 next year, we will come forward with a report of what the art of the possible is and which elements of that we would want to take forward. There is no reason why all of that can't actually happen. It'll basically, the thing that'll stop it is money. But this has such significance that we would expect, from a national point of view, money to come in nationally through various organisations, and also there's some significant sponsorship opportunities as well moving forward.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Ian. Very exciting plans, an exciting vision, and as Councillor Renton said, we've got one shot at this, but I'm sure we'll do it. I had a few questions which I've just had to tweak a little bit because I'm conscious that Councillor Wallace has asked them, obviously being a member of this committee last year. If I could just firstly talk about the visitor numbers, and I think in last year's presentation you're looking at 230,000, of which probably round about 140,000 of those would be users of the play area. Now, just a comment really. I think those numbers are realistic, and the reason why I say that is I'm a parent, obviously, of young children, and I take them to the Railway Museum at Childen. And if I said we're going to the Railway Museum, yeah, I wouldn't get them out of the house, but they know there's a play area there. So it's a key anchor point. Now, just going on to those visitor numbers from last year, I think there was the assumption that probably around about 10% would be paying. Has that changed in any way?
Yeah, no, I think in terms of the business plan and the business model continues to develop as the scheme is developing and our thought process is developing, and sort of the 250,000 visitor numbers will continue to be refined going forward. And I think, again, in terms of, you are right, the play area is, I think we're, let's say, estimating probably 140,000 visitors, because it is going to be a significant play area that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else in the, so it will have a drive time and it'll have a dwell time associated with it, and you'll have to drag your young ones away from it. And obviously, as part of that, I'm wanting you to buy a cup of coffee and have a sandwich, and on warm days we'll be selling ice creams, and cold days we'll be selling soups and whatever else for you. So again, there'll be a significant secondary spend through the site. And yet, in terms of, obviously, as we develop what that offer is going to be for the virtual reality ride, augmented reality, we'll continue to refine. And I think I haven't obviously got the figures in front of me. You must have them there yourself. I think, was it around about 25,000? We're going to use the pay for the experience ride. Again, as I say, I think as we develop on that and the thought processes are developing on that, I'm sure that will increase, because again, it's also the key is to make that it's a changeable, because it's like all these things. Once you've done it once, you've done it. Yeah, you might want to do it twice, but you need something that's going to bring you back. So you're going to bring your young ones at Easter. You're going to bring them in at Halloween, at Christmas, because it's something slightly. There's a slightly different take on it. And yeah, so it is around being able to make sure that there's lots going on in there, and there's obviously opportunities for secondary spend.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Ian. Just going on to obviously the project, and it had various phases, and we were talking about obviously where the funding was coming from. Has there been any significant shift from last year on that?
In terms of funding or the programme?
The programme, because I think if I remember rightly, I think there were 4 phases, or two phases split into two parts, and phase 1 being the significant phase, obviously with the head of steam, the car park, etc. Has there been any real change in the timing? The structure of those phases?
No, I think as we sit here today, because of the opportunity the Towns Fund of bringing that additional cash in at this moment in time, potentially we can deliver most of it at the same time. And with our work and discussions with partners in A1, obviously some of their elements will come forward, I think, in terms of the track and other things. So hopefully what we will end up with is we'll deliver majority, if not all of it, within this time frame we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. And just last question. But I will, if it's okay, I will send you an email with some additional questions afterwards. Essentially, the car park. Thanks for clarifying that, because originally on the plans I was comparing, obviously like with last year, and it did look as though that was a shrubbed area. But you've obviously been able to clarify it's a car park. I'm assuming that there are going to be parking spaces and points for charging for electric vehicles. Will that be the case?
Yes, actually, yeah, we just talked about that yesterday. One of our colleagues, Sue Dobson, is working obviously with the Combined Authority. One of the projects that they're on looking at is obviously putting charging points into visitor destinations. So hopefully we'll get some funding through that to be able to do that. But yeah, there'll be charging points going in there, because by where we're at today, we're 5 years on in 2025, and as you say, yourself, the move towards electric cars is continuing to drive that way. So yeah, we're going to need, and there'll be a combination of fast charging and also slower charging, because again, we want people to probably have a 3 hour half day dwell time on the site. So yeah, we'll be looking at installing chargers in there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And if you could copy in the rest of the committee on your additional questions and answers, that'd be helpful.
I will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cousins, is your hand now down? Okay. Councillor Wallace, is your hand now down?
Just briefly, Ian. I'm conscious, perhaps more so than the presentation we heard from Dave Winstanley, just how much you mentioned officer resource, just how much officer resource from your team, from highways, from planning, are involved in this scheme. Now, I know you're going to tell me that everything's fine, but I know the hours that work, and this is an exceptional one-off project on which so much hangs. Do you believe that you have sufficient resources at the moment, and is that something that you can continue just to liaise with committee about? Because we mustn't forget, this is all down to officer effort, and I can't believe that with the current numbers that we have in the various departments, that you readily have the number, with all the other stuff you have to do, that you have the number of people to hand at the moment to deliver this.
Yeah, I think again in terms of this is a significant project, and there's a strong, competent team of our officers and also external partners that we've now engaged in terms of whether that's with the main contractor and therefore then the specialists in terms of architects and in terms of the interpretation designers, and there will be numerous other consultants along the way that will need to engage as part of the project. So there is a significant team that will ultimately deliver this, and yes, it will eat a lot of my time at certain points, and it'll eat a lot of Mike Crawshaw's time and some of the key staff within the museum as we go through. But as I sit here now, yes, I'm quite comfortable that we are more than capable and able to deliver this with the resource that we have got. And obviously there's some significant result, in terms of Dave's team. We've got the support from their project management staff as well. Sort of the head of capital projects, Brian Robson's on this one because of the significance of the scheme.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. One more question for me. Has any further consideration been given to the potential construction of a Royal George replica?
I believe, as you'll be aware, Councillor, the Friends received the report, I think, at a recent meeting, I believe, from the individual that they asked to commission that. So that report is now produced in terms of the Royal George, and ultimately it's up to the Friends, obviously, in terms of how they wish to progress or not progress, as the case may be, in terms of that project. So the feasibility study that they had asked to take place, that obviously the council have funded for them, has concluded. And yes, it is possible to do it if they wish to, but obviously there's some challenges in there, not least getting the funding to do it, and then who's going to look after it, who's going to manage it, who's going to run it, who's going to own it, who's going to maintain it.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to give a quick summary of the HAS update, and then if there is any questions, we'll try and zip through those. Yeah,
no, I think again, if you just appreciate that this isn't my area, it's one of my colleagues, Richard, who obviously unfortunately couldn't be able. Again, it is critical to the overall sort of rail project. So the Stockton Darlington Rail Heritage Action Zone, we were successful in a bid of partners. There's lots of partners in terms of this project, and it's working across the 26 miles of the S&DR, and there are numerous projects in there that cover that 26 mile stretch of the track bed. Some of it work and rail, some of it in private ownership, some of it in council ownership, and going through the report, there are a couple of obviously key projects in there that Richard's pulled out in terms of Northgate at risk, of the development of the Northgate Conservation Area Master Plan, which again we're looking to have completed by May 21, and again that looks at the things we talked about earlier, and again it comes into this connectivity of the Rail Heritage Quarter down to the town centre, which then picks up to Bank Top. So it'll be looking at the assets along there, and ultimately coming out with a master plan that hopefully can obviously work through and develop as we move towards 2025. In terms of some of the other work in there, there's obviously historic building investigations, which a number of those are obviously on, as Darlington's concerned, are obviously within the Rail Heritage Quarter and Edward Pease House on Northgate, as well as a number of other assets along the line in the other council areas. I think, as we mentioned earlier, there's 100,000 within that HAS programme for some work within the goodshed, in terms of because it's on the at-risk register, so they've obviously allocated a level of funding towards the goodshed, which will just be part of the overall project. And ultimately, they've been the project manager, Richard, working closely with obviously the Friends of Stockton Darlington Railway, have been successful in getting a 45,000 grant from Historic England to deliver, in partnership with the Friends, a range of projects there that are documented in the report. And actually, this is this piece of work is really good because it sets the groundwork to continue, if we're successful with the National Lottery Heritage Fund bid, in terms of moving this forward. This particular element takes this part of the project forward to probably 2023, and if we're successful with the Heritage Lottery grant, then again that moves us forward from 23 through to 2028. In terms of a programme that actually hopefully creates that legacy. So those two are connected together and working together. There's also obviously other projects going on in terms of, we've talked about sort of the walking and cycling route, which again is about the 26 miles and creating that route from the start at Winton Park there, which is now called Paradise Tip, right through to Stockton and the river. As I say, there's lots of challenges along the way because some of it's in local authority ownership, some of it isn't, and some of it is live rail. And as I said, there is a report going to Cabinet in November that talks about our elements and our aspirations moving towards 2025 to try and achieve as much of that as is physically possible, or put diversions in where we need to, so that obviously people can enjoy that route. And then the final one of the other bits of work that's taken place across that hopefully the combined authority are going to fund is developing the branding strategy for the Stockton and Darlington Railway, as well as looking at the interpretation and the wayfinding. So the idea of that is that there's a suite there that obviously the different groups who are involved can obviously use that as the guide to what they want to do in their area of the Stockton and Darlington Railway. So there's lots of work going on in with the HAS. That's a very, very quick whistle stop to it. If you do have any questions, then please send them through to us and I'll get Richard to respond to you with some finer detail. But there's lots of projects going on right across the 26 miles. So again, it's an exciting project, and there's a board there that has representatives from all the organisations involved. And I think, as Councillor Wallace mentioned, on the back of there's the Heritage History Festival, which was something that the Auckland project, the Auckland has started last year, and we've just joined in this year. And moving forward, obviously, we'll continue to work together to benefit, so the two HASs can benefit from each other.
Okay, thank you, Ian. I was going to ask why Darlington had very little events included, but it sounds like you've just answered that by saying that we're tagging on to their event, which is good. And I can strongly recommend the Etherley Incline Walk. It's picturesque, even walking through Paradise Tip. If anyone else has any questions they'd like to ask right now, Councillor Cully, I've got a hand up.
Thank you, Chair. My usual one, can you tell him to stop using acronyms? They're littered throughout it. And what on earth is a HAS PM? A Prime Minister? And what's a CPD training session? No idea. Whenever you use them, you lose me. Would you ask him to please stop doing it? Sorry, I know it's not your fault, Ian, but it really winds me up, you know.
That's why they do it.
And just another small point, I have done extensive market research on 2025, i.e. I asked my hairdresser. My hairdresser then asked his clientele if they had any idea what was happening in 2025. And 100% of people had absolutely no idea, as we stand at the moment, what was happening in 2025. Not one of them, including the people that I asked myself while I was in there. So we really do need to do something about getting this out there, because too many people haven't got a clue of the significance. And as I say, all of these things, we didn't know about them, and some of them are tomorrow, and we didn't know about them. So no, we should know about stuff like this in advance, not just the day before. Again, I know it's not your fault, but I'm just saying. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCollum.
Thank you, Chair. If I can agree with Councillor Cully, not so much about the TLAs, but about the, sorry, that's three-letter acronyms, but about the festival. The content is fantastic, the events look brilliant, but myself and colleagues have expressed this. We were quite surprised to see it, because there has been nothing. I was trawling through social media just before coming online, and there's nothing. And I realise we may be late joining the party, but in terms of building that momentum towards 2025, as Councillor Cully has just highlighted, by the public's kind of lack of information at this point, we need to be using every step that we take. So is there a chance that communications could hop on this and try and promote some of these events? Thank you.
Yeah, I can have a word with them tomorrow. It's not necessarily us that's been leading this, but I'll pick that up and I'll ask our obviously comms partners to put some messages out. Yeah.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I'd like to note the report and or propose that I note the report. Do I have a seconder? Okay, I've got some hands up there, and quick show of hands just to make sure we're all happy. Okay, that's good. Right. So now we move on. Thank you, Ian, by the way, again.
Thank you.
So now we move on to the work programme. And there are a couple of points to discuss for the December meeting, but I think I'll let Hannah take over from this point. If you're still there, or are you asleep? I don't know.
So attached is the work programme just for members to review, and if they've got anything they wish to add. I've just got a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. Let me just find it on there. The introduction to environmental health, that's going to be a members briefing rather than come to a scrutiny, and I'll be sending the date out tomorrow for your diaries. And also the drug and alcohol service contract officers suggested that this was joint with the health scrutiny. So it's going to health scrutiny on the 3rd of March, and I'll send an invite to members of this scrutiny to go along and hear that item.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. And of course, I didn't think you were sleeping, but I won't blame you if you were. Councillor Dave, I think you were going to find out if you were still there. Are you still on the call?
Yes, Councillor Renton. Sorry.
You were going to look in terms of the December meeting about the timeliness of the transport strategy. Do you have an update on that? Yeah,
I think in the pre-meeting we were discussing the volume of stuff on the December meeting. That could slip to the February meeting if required.
Is that confirmed then? That would be enough time to go to feed into the cabinet report in March?
Yes. That should give sufficient time.
So I think if everyone is in agreement, we could drop that the transport strategy till the next meeting, which leaves us with plenty to do in December. I propose that. Anyone happy to second? I've got Paul and Cully and quick show of hands there. Okay, good. Thank you. And in terms of the task and finish, I think a lot of the questions have been answered that we had in our initial meeting. But what I would like to begin with, if everyone is in agreement, with a benchmarking exercise where we simply look at, it's certainly in what Councillor Mrs. Cully says, a lot of people don't know about 2025. So a benchmarking exercise to understand the town's awareness of where we're at with the celebrations and also with Head of Steam. So basically looking at where we are now, so we know where we're progressing from, and also a further look into where we are with the Head of Steam in terms of footfall, financials, and potentially visits and talking to the staff there. So if everyone agrees, that's where I'd like to start. Quad of Aims has already been submitted, so hopefully I don't have to do too much preliminary work. Okay, I saw plenty of shaking heads there, so I think we can move on from that. There are no supplementary items, but I do have some hands up. Councillor Wallace, are you wanting to?
Just briefly, Chair, on the Northgate initiative, which we're dealing with on the 10th of December, could we invite the ward councillors for Northgate along? I'm sure they will have some insight and input that I'm sure we'll find valuable.
Yep, I think that's a great idea. Thank you. If you could do that, please, Hannah. Councillor Heseltine, I've got your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Just I meant to ask it earlier on of David and Stanley, if he's still there, if he could tell us how long that he's been working on the railway station improvements. Sort of what year was he first given the directive to look into that? I just curiosity, really.
I'd probably have to check back into my records, Councillor Hazeltine. It certainly feels like over 5 years, to be fair. But I'll check back.
My recollection is about 2015. I just wondered if which would
That
be the
sort of
5
ties
days.
in with my recollections, where I'll confirm that. Yeah, it's certainly a long time that we started thinking about the concepts and planning the ideas and sowing the seeds of the project.
Yeah, one of the reasons I ask is I remember meeting with you on an issue I was looking at in the Linkfield ward, and you were that busy with this transport thing and the museum that it couldn't be done. And I just wanted to do some re-tracking on this issue that was on paper there then. So I was looking you to confirm dates for me, but not to worry.
I will check back in my files to see when we actually started looking at things. Councillor Hazeldown.
Cheers. We send me an email.
Yep, will do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Cousins, have you got?
It just rings a bell there. It was 2014, very early doors, but I could be wrong. It could be 15, but 14's in my head. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Mrs. Cully, are you up? Hand up again?
Yes, please, Chair. Something for the work programme. Are we still talking about the work programme? Are we still worrying about 2015?
If you like.
Work programme. Okay. There is a pilot study being done. School Streets Initiative.
Yes.
Can we do a task and finish before the end of the year for that, please? So that there's some input from Scrutiny before it goes to Cabinet. I would suggest somewhere around the 14th of December. So not between Christmas and New Year, because I'm guessing that we'd all just like a bit of relaxation then, but before Christmas certainly, because I believe it's going into Cabinet at the beginning of January.
If you'd like to submit a quad of aims, I'd be more than happy to.
Do you know what? I've been waiting all night for you to ask me to do that, Chair. All night. I would certainly do that.
Okay, I think that's everyone, and I think that's everything. So thank you everyone for attending. It was quite nice doing it in the evening, but I suppose it's not much different to us doing it from home anyway at the moment. So let's have a good night, the rest of your night, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Bye.